Our second speaker up is Peter Lumaj. He'll be talking about America is great because America is good. Just a little something about Peter. He's been very active in Connecticut and actually across the nation too. So Peter Lumaj was born and raised in communist Albania. Lack of freedom and opportunity in his homeland encouraged Peter and his three brothers to escape oppression and settle in the United States. They left behind their parents and their 7 other siblings who suffered severe persecution at the hands of the communist government. While attending law school, he worked as a fraud investigator in the Giuliani administration when he was mayor of New York. In addition to his current work at Praetorian Strategy Group, Peter is a practicing attorney and owns his own law offices of Peter Lumaj. In 2014, Peter was a Republican nominee for Connecticut Secretary of State and was the closest race for statewide office in recent Connecticut history. In 2018, he sought the Republican nomination for Connecticut governor. Peter makes major media appearances as a Republican political strategist on stations such as Fox News, Sky News, Fox 61, and I-24 News. He remains involved in national, state, and local politics and is widely recognized as a major force within the conservative movement within the Connecticut Republican Party. Peter Lumaj, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was great. I didn't know that was me, actually, but thank you. Last year, I got an award called Republicans Across Borders. And telling a refugee, giving them an award that deals with borders is not a good idea. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peter Lumaj. I live in Fairfield, and I'm very happy to be here and see all of you. I haven't been out in a while. I got a question from my son. He's 21 years old. He's attending the Catholic University in Washington. And he asked me, what makes America exceptional and what is the biggest threat to our nation? What makes our nation exceptional, it's not that God loves us more than other people or that we're better looking than other people. No, what makes our nation exceptional is the foundation of this country, the documents, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. They are the greatest achievements in Western history of the world, I would say, since the Bible. What the Declaration did, told us that you are created, that we are created, that there is a God, that the founding fathers used those Judeo-Christian beliefs to write that document. And in the end, he told us that we are created equal. All men are created equal. That was the foundation that would be used later by the United States to fight slavery. It was not the Constitution. It was the Declaration, the foundation of that debate, to make all men equal. Then it continued by saying that we are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. That means that those are God-given rights. So the founding fathers didn't shy away from their Judeo-Christian values. And they told us that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are God-given rights. Then they wrote the Constitution. The Constitution was written to serve as a controlling device on government to make sure that individuals remain free. Now, what happens when the Constitution and the founding documents of this country are ignored? I'll tell you what happens. The government is that threat that would enslave people. How do I know that? I grew up in a country, namely Albania. where we had no Bill of Rights, we had no Declaration of Independence, we had no First Amendment, we had no Second Amendment to defend ourselves, and we were enslaved by our own government. I was 20 years old when I escaped slavery. And when I tell people that, they don't believe it. Because they don't think of a white guy that was been enslaved. 3 million people were enslaved by our own government. The moment my brothers and I decided to escape Albania and search for freedom and opportunity, it took us 72 hours to cross from Albania into what used to be Yugoslavia, walking over the mountains, and any one of us had been caught, we would have been killed, executed, or imprisoned for life. The moment we crossed the border, government agents showed up, picked up my family, my parents, siblings, 7 of them, nieces and nephews, and took them into a concentration camp where they tortured my father to death because he had failed to notify the government that his sons wanted to leave Albania. In other words, we wanted to leave slavery, and we weren't allowed. They tortured him to death because of that. And I'll tell you one thing. He sacrificed his life so I could live in freedom. He sacrificed his life so my brothers could live in freedom. And we found freedom and opportunity here. And it's under attack right now. Everything that I left behind in Eastern Europe, it's coming to the United States. Socialism is here. And the biggest threat to our freedoms and liberty is the House of Freedom itself. It's our own government. From the moment the founding fathers gave us these documents and established this nation, the elected officials started attacking the very founding documents of this country. Mainly Democrats, but even Republicans. And that is the threat that I told my son is the biggest threat to our Constitution and to this nation right now. It is an ideological threat. And the goal is that they want to erode, eliminate, and replace the Republican form of government with judicial decisions, if they could, and make major outcome policies determined by unelected officials and imposed on the entire nation. And that's the threat that we're facing. Institutional threat. Look at the separation of powers. It is almost non-existent at this point. Look at the independence of the states within the unions. They are almost non-existent. And all these threats are coming from Washington, D.C., from people that you and I voted for and sent them there. Look at political threats. We are criminalizing political differences in this nation. You disagree with someone? I dare you to do it. You will be called racist, sexist, homophobe, xenophobe, you name it. Yet people like me came to this country knowing that it's not a white country. Because Albania is 100% white. I knew that there were blacks here, Hispanics here, all races here. We came here because of that arrangement that the founding fathers gave us so you could succeed, so you can become prosperous, so you have rights. Think about the Democrats, the kind of attacks that they are launching on our nation right now. On the Constitution, on the Declaration, on our family values, traditional values, Judeo-Christian values. Who's being targeted? Everything that America stands for is under attack. Tell me one thing that America, this great nation, stands for that the Democrats are not attacking, including God. Always remember that. If they can replace God with government, they would do that. And that's how you start persecuting and prosecuting people, by telling them that your rights do not come from God because God doesn't exist. They come from the government. And that's what the socialists do. They will tell you that you have government guaranteed rights. Guess what? If the government gives you rights, they can modify those rights. But think of it as they can even eliminate those rights. Aren't the Democrats into that? This is where I think at least every school in the United States should get some refugees to speak to the students and make sure that they come from communist countries. Because we'll tell you the truth. We're fearless. We don't care. Because we have seen everything. We have seen that movie that you're trying to play here. We don't like the ending of it. We have seen our families being persecuted and prosecuted because of political differences, because of religious issues. We were enslaved by our own government. Our own government arrested us, and tortured us, and beat us. And guess what? Before they did this to their own people, the first thing that they did, they disarmed us. Are the Democrats trying to disarm us? There's a reason for that. They are not going after illegal guns. They are going after you and I. They want to make sure that we do not have the ability to stand up to a tyrannical government. Didn't the founding fathers tell us that that is the reason for the Second Amendment? It is clear. It is not for hunting. It's not for sport. It is there so we can defend ourselves against a tyrannical government. When I told you that my family was taken to the camp, into the concentration camp, the only people with guns were government agents. We had no guns. My brothers and siblings couldn't defend themselves. Couldn't do a damn thing. Because they made sure, the government made sure that we couldn't defend ourselves and we couldn't disagree with the government. Should we as Americans allow this nation to become just another country? I don't think we should do that. Because the world depends on a strong and powerful United States. And this is where the Republican Party comes in. Its weak knee has become the Democrat Party of 1960s. Not even 1960s, I'm afraid they're even more liberal than that. So it befalls upon the conservative wing of the Republican Party to save this nation. We are the only ones who have the character and the fortitude to stand up and defend this country. Allowing socialism in the name of liberalism to come to the United States, we can vote it in. But to enforce it, you're going to need brute power. And to defeat it, you're going to need a bloody revolution. So we better think twice before we vote these liberals in. We better think twice before we donate money to some Republicans who never read the Constitution. You'll learn more from Martin Luther King in one speech right here, if you attend one, that most Republicans who got elected learned in college. And no wonder they are not fighting for us. They don't understand the foundation of this country, what it stands for. This is not to insult any Republicans out there by name, but when I was seeking the nomination for governor, we had elected officials, Republicans, who called my delegates and told them you shouldn't vote for Peter Lumaj because he doesn't look American, doesn't sound American. I was on Laurie Bush show when I said that. I never lied to them. And she may even seek the nomination for governor next year. And I confronted her. I got emotional. I put my life in danger to come to this country. And I would do it again for the greatness of this nation. But as Republicans, we cannot insult each other that way. Whether you come from Cuba or Albania or Middle East, if you have Republican values, we embrace you. Whether you're black or white or Hispanic. We embrace Republicans and Republicanism. Not someone just because of their accent or the way they live. I found that to be pretty insulting. That to her, I didn't sound American, didn't look American. Yet, I'm living the American dream. I'm living the American dream. When I came here, I didn't speak a word of English, and I'm still learning, trust me. I didn't have any money, and we were shipped to Detroit, Michigan. 4 of us, 4 refugees, 4 brothers. A Protestant church, that's it. And I walked into that church, and when the priest stood up to say his prayers, ministered, my brothers and I started laughing. That's how ignorant we were in the house of God. We never seen a church before because they shut it down in 1960, I think. The first time I ever attended church was in Michigan, the Protestant church. Then we learned some English and moved to New York. I started working Burger King, flipping burgers, making $5.25 an hour. Started attending college, and I worked full-time while attending college. Eventually, I went to law school, passed the board, and became an attorney. I have my own practice. My brothers are doing very well. My family right now has over 15 college graduates that were born here. 3 of them attended graduate schools. So the question is, if we have that freedom, the opportunity, what do you do with it? In a Republican form of government like ours, you have no limits, no restrictions, but ones that are self-imposed. If I can do it, and my family can do it, everybody can do it. But the Democrats will always try to create victims, and they want to make sure that they have a permanent underclass in the United States to use them as a victim. They've been doing that for years. Now it's our turn. You see, they talk about immigrants, illegals, refugees, and as if we cannot do anything on our own. Do not become a victim of the government, because the government is not there to help you and I. The moment that we restrain the government within the confines of the Constitution, you and I are free. Then and only then can you and I and everyone repeat in unison the famous words of Martin Luther King that you're free at last, and God, your mind, you're free at last. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.